You are good.
It is Wednesday, November 11th, Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day. And I think Donald J. Trump, who may or may not be getting a second term. We'll see. It's still being litigated, but he's doing exactly what he should do on Veterans Day. He's shaking up this Department of Defense, putting in some of his guys, and hopefully yanking everybody out of Afghanistan before January 20th, which obviously upsets the swamp, upsets the deep state. As Jake Tapper said, some people are upset that he's prematurely pulling out of Afghanistan, prematurely after 19 years. That is the best thing you can do for veterans on this Veterans Day. It won't make Joe Biden happier, the Clintons or the deep state, because they love those endless wars. But hopefully he can end this one endless war. Also, the newest member of Joe Biden's team, Ezekiel Emanuel, has one deep thought that seems to fly in the face of Joe Biden's existence. He doesn't think anyone should live longer than 75 years. We'll read you what Ezekiel Emanuel has to say. By the way, Joe Biden's not the only one who's walking dead, according to Ezekiel Emanuel. Look around Washington. Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Fauci. Everybody's too old for Ezekiel Emanuel's liking. Tony La Russa got busted again. He got a job first, and then he got busted again. Maybe, and he's by the way, he's a little too old for Ezekiel Emanuel too. But he's got the worst excuse or the worst attempt to try and talk himself out of an arrest I've ever seen. And we got some of the questions, the hard-hitting questions from the lapdog media to their chosen one, to Joe Biden yesterday. It's amazing how Biden could handle such a storm from the mainstream media. We'll play some of those, which are pretty comical, and a preview of coming attractions, most likely for the next 4 years. We'll get into all that on today's Callahan podcast, brought to you by DCU. Do you love your car but hate your car payment? No problem. Refinance your car today with DCU, and they can help lower your monthly payment, your interest rate, or both. Applying is easy, and their loan experts will help you find the loan term and the payment that fits into your budget. Get out of that high-rate loan and get the interest rate and the payment you deserve from DCU. Learn more and apply today at dcu.org/refinance. Insured by NCUA. Membership required. All right, Cullinate is here. Tom Shattuck is here, host of the Burn Barrel podcast and football expert. I think of him as Tommy the Irishman, who is. I'm going to give him credit. I'm dead serious about this. He didn't really know what he was talking about, but he picked the Jets, and nobody else did. I went through it on ESPN.com the other day. 26 experts, all of them picked the Patriots, every single one. Only Tom Shattuck went out on a limb, picked the Jets, and of course they didn't win, but they sure did beat the spread, and they sure did surprise some people. I mean, they didn't surprise people in the end because they choked it away because they're a loser franchise. But Your money's in the mail, Shattuck. Your money's in the mail. I owe you $10.
In the house that Vinny Testaverde built, Jerry, we witnessed history a couple of days ago where the big green machine reclaimed its place as the most dominant force in the AFC East.
Well, they went to 0-9.
Speaking of green, I don't think it's just football. I think Shattuck is an expert at all sports. So I think we have to get his masters. Yeah,
who do you like? Who do you like in the Masters? It's a very unusual thing, a November Masters. Tiger Woods, the defending
Fuzzy Zeller, Jerry. I like his long game this year. And
not a bad pick. He's in. I think he's in the field. He's eligible. Oh no, he's not eligible, is he? They changed the rule. It used to be able to play for life if you won the Masters. You win for life. That's why he got in trouble. They asked him after Tiger won, young Tiger, what he was gonna. The defending champ gets to pick the meal for the champions dinner like this week, right? And it's a big deal. What the menu is. It's a big deal. Tiger. I don't know what he picked this week. He usually picks like cheeseburgers. And they asked Fuzzy Zeller, what do you think?
Thank God.
They asked him, let me finish explaining why Fuzzy's controversial, because I don't think Shattuck even knows. And Fuzzy, I mean, he's a gregarious guy. You see him. And he stepped in it. He said, Tiger was going to serve collard greens and fried chicken. He said,
Yeah.
or whatever else those people eat. And right then,
geez.
Fuzzy Zeller was a dead man walking. He lost all his endorsements. He lost millions with Kmart, who was his big endorser, and he just became a villain for the rest of his life. He's still around, but he never recovered from that.
I was going to say, thankfully, Sergio Garcia's pulled out because he had one of those moments himself involving Tiger Woods. So thankfully, he wasn't asked about the dinner tonight. I think he said basically the same thing, didn't he?
Did he say? Is that what?
Yeah, I'd have to look up. He said something about fried chicken or something like that. It did not go well. It did not go well for Sergio. There was
Sergio could say it's a language thing, or he's not used to our culture. With Fuzzy, he always it was not good, and I don't even know if he shows up and goes to the champions dinner anymore because it was not good. So I don't like your guys' chances, Shattuck.
I got a good feeling about it, Jerry.
You do, yeah.
Well, now that Jack Nicklaus has been banned and he's now on the AOC death list for writing a nice post about Donald Trump last week, Jerry. Leaderboard whittled down.
Yeah, that's a good list. You got Bobby Orr on that list, and Jack Nicklaus, and Brandy Love, and Brett Favre, and Jerry Callahan. I'm proud to be on that list. I would like to be on AOC's death list. AOC / Jake Tapper. They're both keeping lists. It is the most chilling thing. It's another great example of how liberalism is dead. They are keeping lists like Stalinists now, and they do it with such a lack of self-awareness. Like, we're tracking you. Anyone who worked for Trump, helped Trump, you're not going to get a job. The Lincoln Project's doing it. My new favorite list, CNN's doing it, of course. No one actually watches CNN, but you see it on Twitter. They got a list, and they're keeping track of all the senators and congressmen who haven't congratulated Joe Biden. So if you're a Trump loyalist and you want to let this play out, let him exhaust all his legal recourse in this fight against voter fraud, if you don't call Biden and congratulate him, even though no state has been verified, he's not the president-elect yet, you are on CNN's list, and they're going to check you off one at a time. Oh, did he call? Did he wish Biden well? It's incredible, and I guess it's no surprise. I say this all the time. I always knew the media was in the tank. I mean, for all my adult life, I knew the New York Times was not really a newspaper. The Boston Globe is a joke, and ABC, NBC, CNN. But what Trump did was just expose them to the point where they don't care. They don't even pretend anymore. It's just comical. They don't even pretend. The press conference yesterday with Biden coming out there, he's got his little script written by John Meacham, who, by the way, said Biden did a wonderful job answering questions yesterday, and he did a great speech the other day. Meacham. Talk about objective journalists. That clown, that absolute fool, John Meacham, and I love the usual suspects on Twitter love John Meacham. He's so thoughtful. What a sleazy bastard. Now, I had Alex Reamer on yesterday, and he made a great defense for John Meacham. He said, "What about Sean Hannity?" And I said, what? What about Sean Hannity? I'm going, what are you talking about? Sean Hannity talks to Trump. Sean Hannity tells you the truth. He might be the most honest guy in New York or D.C. I mean, where he stands. He likes Trump. He talks to Trump. So what? John Meacham wrote speeches, by the way. I was just reading this. He's been doing it for the whole campaign, writing speeches for Biden and then going on MSNBC and saying, what a wonderful speech that was. Even NBC, even MSNBC has some standards. They fired the sleazy bastard and said, you're not a paid contributor. He can still come on, but he's not going to get paid anymore because obviously that's unethical. Even by today's standards, that's unethical. But they don't care. Did you get the sense yesterday watching the media with Biden? And he's struggling, but they are there to help him. Their job now is to steer this doddering old man through the minor little bumps in the road and help him to January 20th. He'll go back in the bunker as soon as he can. And, he'll give a State of the Union address, which will be interesting. And he'll give occasional press conferences in front of these fawning media people. but you get the sense that they step up to the mic with one goal in mind. Let's help old Joe. Let's help our guy get through this moment. It's not easy for him to stand there, even with a script, even with a fawning media. They got to help him through these moments and avoid embarrassment.
Right. Well, it shows a real skill what they're doing, because what they do now is, and most questions are about 35 seconds long. What they do now is embed the answer to the question in the question.
Right.
So they'll say, President-elect Biden, don't you think that President Trump is damaging the democracy by refusing to concede in the election in a historic election year where the country needs to unite and the country needs to cast off division and come together, and parties need to cross, and there needs to be conciliatory manner. And they finish it for him. Biden stands there with his mouth open and simply just has to say, well, exactly. And the votes have to be counted, but President Trump needs to understand that he needs to be responsible for this. And so in there, when they write it up, all of their own verbiage, all their own copy is used in the answer to the question. Biden agreed that bang. It's wonderful. They're doing him. They're really doing a nice job for him.
I don't know what you got from him, Cullinane, but yesterday isn't it awful that Donald Trump hasn't called you yet? And these senators who haven't congratulated you yet, Mr. Biden, or I'm sorry, Mr. President-elect, are you going to be able to work with them even though they haven't sent you flowers yet? I mean, I guess it's going to be fun. It's going to be funny. I can't let it bother me. We know these aren't real journalists. There are no real journalists. I mean, except maybe, occasional bloggers out there, or guys, with their cell phones, like the guys covering the BLM and Antifa riots. Citizen journalists are the only ones actually doing the job. Now it's just an extension of the Biden team. But yes, I feel like they have that glitter. You know how they used to have with Obama, that little glitter in their eye, that glow in their eye. Oh, when they step up and they go, I get a chance to talk to Joe Biden. And they get so excited.
Well, Jerry, we talked about it before, and I know this isn't new, but just listen. When the glitter in the eye with Obama, just listen. Not only does Obama, when he talks to Jeff Zeleny, not only does he just charm Jeff Zeleny. This is 10 years ago. This is when Zeleny was with the New York Times. Jeff Zeleny now runs all the CNN political reporting. But not only that, but Obama works the entire room. Everybody in the room, every member of the White House press corps is just bowled over by him.
During these first 100 days, what has surprised you the most about this office, enchanted you the most about serving in this office, humbled you the most, and troubled you the most?
Let me write this down.
Surprised,
I've got,
troubled.
I've got, what was the first one?
Surprised, troubled, enchanted,
nice.
and humbled.
That was
Humbled. Thank you, sir.
Rolling in the aisles.
That was a low point and a funny point. That guy's in charge of CNN's coverage. I did not know that.
Well, Zeleny was the one. Here, I'll play it. I think Zeleny's the one who asked about Mitch McConnell yesterday. Hang on.
Mr. President-elect, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has suggested today that he may not recognize the outcome of this election until the Electoral College meets next month. Have you spoken to your longtime friend in the Senate, Mr. McConnell? And what do you make of his specific comments over the last 24 hours?
I haven't had a chance to speak to Mitch. My expectation is that I will do that in not too distant future. I think that the whole Republican Party has been put in a position, with a few notable exceptions, of being mildly intimidated by the sitting president.
Oh my God.
Talk about Sleepy Joe. I mean, God, did he miss his morning cup of coffee? That's the guy we have to listen to for the next 4 years, or at least until Kamala succeeds in ousting his decrepit old ass and ascends to the throne. But that guy is in charge of CNN's coverage. That is a pajama boy. That is a pathetic sycophant who does not care about news or stories or journalism. He cares about sucking the toes of the people he's supposed to be covering. That guy is pathetic. What has enchanted you? Can you imagine a journalist asking Donald Trump what's enchanted him the most? Or forget Trump, just asking, whoever, Reagan or Bush, or what's enchanted you the most? He's just a sad, pathetic, ass-kissing stooge.
Can you imagine going back to your editor at a newspaper and them saying, "Oh, what did you get today at the presser?" And say, "Well, I asked him what enchanted him, and holy Jesus, certainly you'd be out of a job, but you would be tarred and feathered." It's incredible. But I just want to play one other thing, Jerry. I got from the Obama era, from that time, from 2010. This is Jeff Zeleny talking about Robert Gibbs stepping down with two other D.C. journalists.
Joining us today is Jeff Zeleny from the New York Times, who has some fantastic breaking news out of the White House, where it's also going to be a new day. Jeff, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the fact that Robert Gibbs stepping down as White House press secretary, what this means, and who's going to replace him?
What it means is that he's the most visible person in the White House. He's at the briefings every day. He's really has become sort of a household, at least face, if you will, if not a name. And I think it means that there is more of a restructuring going on there than we once thought. If you sort of put everyone together on a list who is coming and going, there are a lot of people changing offices. But at the end of the day, Robert Gibbs is still very much going to be in Barack Obama's orbit.
So wait a second. Turnover at the White House is something that only happened during the Trump administration. Remember? This is 2010, a huge shakeup, including the chief of staff at the Obama administration after they got shellacked in the midterms. And people are coming and going. Gibbs is out on his ass, and there's a total shakeup in the White House, coming and going. But now it's healthy turnover. Back then, this is a good thing. We see no reason to panic whatsoever in the Obama White House. Don't worry, Gibbs will still be around. We still love him. Everything's fine.
We are always going to be grateful for Trump, even if it's a one-term thing for a number of things. But exposing the media like no one has ever done before is going to be the one of the great things he ever did for the Republic. And it continues, even though he's not out front. He's not calling into Fox and Friends every day. He's kind of sitting back, letting his legal team do their thing. What we have here is voter fraud. And rampant voter fraud. Is it widespread? That's the word the media has latched onto. No widespread, which is pretty nebulous, voter fraud, but massive voter fraud around the country. We knew it was coming. We knew that's why they did mail-in voting, why we had early voting, drive-by voting, everything designed to allow them to steal the election. They succeeded. Give them credit. They set out to defeat the big bad orange man, and they apparently did. And in their mind, there is no limit, or there's no moral limit to what they were going to do. When you think about it, here's what it comes down to, Tom, and I've explained this before, but Hillary lost. They were shocked. Trump took over. They hate him. So they decided 4 years ago, Hillary, Obama, Biden, when they decided to cook up the Russian hoax, they said, we must stop him at all costs. It doesn't matter if it's illegal, immoral. It doesn't matter. He's evil. If something's evil, if someone's Hitler, you can do anything. You can rationalize it, and you can do anything to stop him. And that's what they did this time. They said, we must stop him at all costs. And they did, whether it came to, marking the ballots that came in late and marking them on election day, or stuffing the ballot box, or having dead people vote, whatever it took. And if you were to ask any Democrat, do you have any compunction about what you did? Some of it's illegal, much of it's inappropriate. Do you have any second thoughts, any hesitation? They would say absolutely not. We're talking about Donald Trump. Yes. He must be defeated. He must be defeated. So now we're finding out again. Kayleigh McEnany yesterday, she was Fox pulled the plug on her 2 days ago because that smarmy Pew Cavuto didn't like what she had to say. That's a new thing. If you don't like what someone in Trump's team has to say, take them off the air, shut them up. That's the new method for the media. No free speech. No, let's exchange ideas and debate. Just shut them up. That's what they do on CNN. They don't show the speeches if they don't like them. Well, now Fox is doing it. Cavuto, who nobody even watches, his ratings are in the toilet. Why he even has that prime spot is beyond me. Says, I'm not going to let you hear from her. She's making charges, baseless charges. So Sean Hannity has her on last night. In her hand, she has 234 pages of sworn affidavits, testimony under the penalty of perjury of people who've seen voter fraud, who've seen improprieties and irregularities, citizens who said, yeah, here's what happened. She's waving it in front of the cameras, and all the other networks and newspapers are saying, no evidence, baseless charges. And then you have absolute embarrassments like Charlie Baker, the governor of Massachusetts, saying, I can't believe these baseless charges. And it's like, baseless? I mean, you could say they don't swing the election. You could say, Michigan is 150,000 votes. He's not going to be able to take Michigan, swing the vote enough to win it. Fine, say that if you'd like. But the word, when you say baseless or you say no evidence, you expose yourself as just a partisan who doesn't want to get to the bottom of it, who doesn't want to hear the truth and expose this kind of fraud, because there's plenty of evidence. It's in plain sight.
Right. No, there are absolutely. And you don't need widespread voter fraud. All you need is Cook County to give JFK the presidency. But they can't, regardless, the margin's too close and Trump will not be, declared the winner. And these recounts aren't going to swing that many votes. But for Jesus Christ, you would think that if you're confident enough in your victory that you'd want to at least vet this to say, hey, we did our due diligence. We went through everything. And, we made every effort to support the efforts of Team Trump to try to make sure the election was legitimate. But rather than just shut it down, you're right, though. You're right. Since that day in 2016, they just considered Trump somebody who's not the credible president. They considered him somebody who stole the election with Cambridge Analytica, Jerry. Remember that? That was a thing for 2.5 years. Cambridge Analytica, and Trump was a paid subcontractor of Vladimir Putin. We were told by the New York Times, by news outlets, by all these serious people in the press room who just asked Joe Biden, how bad Donald Trump is, like Jeff Zeleny. It wasn't dangerous rhetoric for 2 years when they did this. They created an impeachment template for this. Unfortunately, Mueller didn't know it was in its own fraudulent report, so they couldn't impeach him over that. So they tried to throw him out over something else. I mean,
yeah, and so now, I understand Democrats, they know that they got this. They used every underhanded tactic. They know why they pushed so hard for mail-in balloting and ballot harvesting. They know that they broke all the rules to oust the evil orange man. And they don't want to get to the bottom of it. I understand that, why they want to move on. But these are actual journalists, and you're talking about a major story. You're talking about voter fraud across the country. I mean, guys who are testifying to committing voter fraud. And they say, no, it's time to put that behind us. The same people who spent 3 years and the $30 million chasing the made-up Russian hoax, which was fine. The Facebook ads, something. I mean, they literally will still rationalize the Russian witch hunt and say, no, that election was not legitimate. This one is. It's comical to see the lengths they will bend over.
And there's never any reckoning, Jerry. There's never any reckoning. You're right. It was the Russian hoax. It was all vaporware that they put out there. There was nothing to it. But they said, you need to put country over party because this guy, Trump, colluded, worked with and cooperated with Russians to try to win an election. When in fact, we have literally the receipts now that Team Clinton, Hillary, worked with the Russians. She paid for the dossier. They paid Russians. I mean, the proof is there, but that's now gone. They never have to reckon with what they said, these same media people. Brian Stelter never has to say, by the way, I screwed it up badly for the last 2 years and scared the hell out of you. And remember, it's about Trump needs to bring the temperature down. Well, who's raising the temperature when you've convinced the American people that the communist Russians are running the country, are running our country?
And the idea that Trump is not supposed to be magnanimous, when, again, I'll say it again, I'll say it every day. Joe Biden, days before leaving office with Obama, was plotting on how to undermine the Trump presidency, the Trump candidacy for months, and then the Trump presidency. Biden was involved in that effort to wiretap the Trump campaign and charge General Flynn with the Logan Act. That was Biden's idea. And now Biden, 1 week after the election, can stand up there and say it's an embarrassment that he wants to count all the legal votes and expose all the fraud. Fortunately, this is Donald Trump we're talking about. Again, if this were Mitt Romney or that disgrace, that despicable snake, Mitt Romney or Jeb Bush or one of those, or George Bush, it'd be over. They'd be begging. They'd be saying, congratulations, Joe Biden. Did I do good, Andrea Mitchell? Did I do good, Chuck Todd? You guys proud of me? I surrendered. You happy now? Here's one thing that just blows my mind that I will always remember, because I've seen a lot of election nights, as you have, Shattuck, and I know we're exposing a lot of fraud, and I know it probably won't overturn the result, but it will hopefully get some people arrested, hopefully to wake up the Republicans, so next time they will not agree to have, drive by the polling place and blink twice, and we'll count your vote as a vote for the Democrat. Make it easier. We didn't make it easier. Like, voting's not easy enough. If we had everybody go to the polls, show their ID, and vote, Trump would have won in a landslide. The reason Biden won is because they facilitated the fraud. They made it easier. The mail-in balloting, the ballot harvesting, the no showing ID. Every rule they put in place was designed to make it easier for Democrats to steal the election, and they succeeded. And God bless them. Some of it's legal, some of it's not legal. But I'm looking at the results that on election night, and this is right about the time maybe you went to bed. I'm not sure. Look at Georgia. Georgia right here. This is a chart from a James Woods tweet. Georgia had, I think, 83% in. Trump had 53%. Biden had 45%. He was up 8%. With 83% in, and the polls closed. These are all numbers when the polls closed, Tom Shattuck. Pennsylvania, polls closed. This is incredible. Polls are closed. Biden, 41.8%. Donald Trump, 57%. He was up more than 15 percentage points when the polls closed. He had 2.5 million. Biden had 1.8 million. And he lost, quote unquote, that state. Michigan, he was up 10 points when the polls closed. 59% votes were in Michigan. In North Carolina, which I never understood why that polls closed, they had 94% of the vote in. Trump was up 1.5%. And have they called it yet? Has North Carolina been called?
They haven't called it.
94% of the vote in on election night. He was up 1 point. I don't even understand. Maybe you help. He was up 5 points in Wisconsin when the polls closed. But again, Georgia, 8%, Pennsylvania, 15%. He was up when the polls closed, and Michigan, 10% when the polls closed.
Have you seen this site, Jerry? Jerry Cowan podcast listener. I'll give him a shout out right now. DM me this yesterday. Everylegalvote.com. So this is a shout out to Lord Blueberry. This is his Twitter handle. You got to go to this, everylegalvote.com, and you can sort by with fraud, without fraud, and then the current status. And it's wild. If the Trump campaign isn't behind this thing, it's the most beautifully done website. And you should see what it has. It has Trump. You got to go check it out. But without fraud, it has Trump in a fucking landslide. You got to see it.
I just sent you this chart. It's just results when the polls closed, and I don't understand. I legitimately don't understand how this happened. I've never seen anything like it. Usually, the polls close. If you're up 1%, you're good, right? If you're up at all when the polls close, you're supposed to be good. He was up, and this is another reason I don't blame Trump at all for fighting to the death. He was up 15 points in Pennsylvania when the polls closed. This was all by design. They knew that if they were trailing when the polls closed or trailing at any point, they had a backup plan. It was bags full of ballots. It was somehow, some way they were going to have enough votes to get them over the top. And by the time the voting, the questions, the counting stopped, Pennsylvania, they were counting votes for 3 days. That came in after the polls closed. It's
Right.
just mind-boggling. So the polls are closed, and they're finding mail-in ballots, no postmark, no signature, just going, hey, this one's for Biden. It's clearly there was fraud. Clearly.
Right. And I understand that there can be anomalies.
So if you're watching on Facebook, Cullen just got it up there. It's mind-boggling. Look at those numbers. Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania. You're telling me that was on the up and up? That was on the level? I don't believe it. I'm sorry. I'm a cynic. I don't believe that the Democrats just happen to make a big comeback the next morning and win fair and square. They did not. And here's I got to break it to my friends, my Biden fans, friends who are Biden fans. I'm never going to think it's legit. I'm never going to think he won this legitimately. Never. I mean, I look at those numbers. I see the stories. I see the affidavits of the testimony. Some of it is shrouded. Laura Ingraham had this woman with the voice changer on last night talking about all the fraud she saw on election night. There's just overwhelming evidence of voter fraud. Was it enough to swing the election? I don't know, but there's so much of it. I can't help but think this was illegitimate. And this guy, again, it's not going to go well. Unfortunately, you didn't have a good candidate. Democrats have a guy who's not going to make it through one term. It's going to be ugly at some point. But the thing I will never look at him and say it's legit. He's the legit winner of this election.
Well, just 8 days ago, every major Democrat and newsmaker was agreeing with you, saying that there's rampant voter fraud that happens every time, and it's on the right. And they were saying this is exactly what the Republicans did with Stacey Abrams, that they can duplicate across the United States.
Voter suppression. Get it straight.
Right. And they said,
and you don't hear about that anymore, Shattuck. You know why? Because he got 76 million votes. They set records everywhere. So that whole voter suppression thing, forget about that. That was just made up.
That's right. Trump had stolen all the mailboxes, Jerry. There were videos and pictures everywhere of mailboxes, hogtied and being driven away to be melted down. And the whole system, we're told, the whole system, including the Electoral College, that had to go. Now that can stay, apparently. But the funny thing is that in 2 years, there's going to be a midterm election in which the civil war between AOC and Joe Biden and every other whack job is going to be the referendum that brings in a huge Republican landslide. And guess what's going to be back when that happens? Voter fraud will be back when that happens. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think it's another favor I think Trump has done is going to bring this to light. And hopefully Republicans don't just roll over like they did this time and agree to every new provision and say, coronavirus. We got to have mail-in voting, early voting. We got to make it easier to register and don't show any IDs and everything. Coronavirus. That's what they used, as always. The Democrats used this pandemic and it worked. And it worked. I give them credit. It worked. They're going to get away with it. 4 years ago, right now, they were telling us the president-elect was a puppet of Putin, took his orders from Putin, and their lapdogs in the media ran with it. And those same people are saying, you know what? I think it's time to move on for the good of the country. And if you don't agree, you're on the list. You're on the death list. And by the way, if you attempt to tweet or post on Facebook about voter fraud, we got our guys in place to bring it down, suspend you, ban you.
Yep.
It is frightening, this deep state effort to make this all go away and install this illegitimate president. I'm going to say it, damn it, this illegitimate president. I'm gonna embrace that. But
selected, not elected.
I think right. Selected, not elected. I'm with the resistance. Resist. And you know what else? Resistance is patriotic.
Yes,
I'm a patriot. I don't like the president. I'm a patriot.
But
I do think, Shattuck, we have to appreciate one thing with the new incoming administration. And again, I think there was rampant, widespread voter fraud, not enough to overturn the election, unfortunately. And Donald Trump, we're going to just have to enjoy the post-presidency Trump, which will be wild. There's a rally this weekend in D.C. for Patriots for Trump, which is going to be wild. These are people who are just pissed and frustrated, and they're going to let out some steam. and it's going to be nuts. They won't burn any buildings. You don't have to put up plywood again. You don't have to worry about looters, but they are going to have their say. And I think Biden, Kamala Harris administration will provide plenty of comic relief for us. They'll be here, and they'll continue, and they'll do things like their new coronavirus task force that he named 10 people. And Biden didn't do it. He doesn't know what he's doing, but somebody behind the throne, some power behind the throne, put this group together, includes some hardcore team lockdown guys, including one guy who's been making the rounds saying that we have to do like Australia and other countries in Asia who went hard on the lockdowns. Australia had this lockdown that went for like 4 months, where it was illegal to leave your house except for an hour a day. It was illegal to go more than 3 miles from your house. No work, no school, no nothing. This guy thinks that may be the direction we're going, which is the most unpopular thing. But again, Biden doesn't know what he's doing. He's going to defer to the scientists. And on his task force, he's got scientists that want to lock the whole country down again, put the economy back in the dumper, just completely destroying the morale of America.
Mm-hmm.
They're waiting for the next big spike so they can lock us all down. But anyway, even more entertaining to me is Ezekiel Emanuel. We've talked about him before. He's Rahm Emanuel's brother. He's this creepy, ghoulish doctor who somehow has ingratiated himself to every politician. Trump consulted with him for some friggin' reason. I don't know why. But he's out front. You've seen him on TV. He's got this lisp, and he's just creepy. He's a ghoul. He's the reason that Sarah Palin, when they were talking about initially talking about Obamacare, said they're going to have death panels. Of course, Sarah Palin was mocked and ridiculed by the media, but she was right. She was right the whole time, because his thing is he doesn't understand why we put so many resources into old people, like why you would spend real money, lots of money, to give a 85-year-old a heart transplant or a whatever, lung or a knee or hip transplant. If you're 85, 88, 90, he probably thinks the coronavirus is a wonderful thing. He thinks people over 75 should just go away and die. He has written, I just read it, a piece for The Atlantic. The headline is, "Why I Hope I Die at 75." He says, that's how long, his lead of the Atlantic piece is 75. That's how long I want to live. And he goes on and on about how people over 75 are a burden. Your best days are over. He said, we are no longer remembered as vibrant, engaged, but as feeble, ineffectual, and pathetic. That's how he says people are over 75. So we shouldn't spend a lot of money on people over 75. All right. Quick rundown. Who's over 75? The guy who hired him, allegedly. He's working for a president who's going to be 78 in a few days, and who is not all there. Again, let me go back to the line. He's not remembered as vibrant or engaged, but feeble, ineffectual, and pathetic. Who does that describe to you, Tom Shattuck? That is the description of the guy who just hired him to be his consultant, who thinks that when you're over 75, you should wander off into the woods or into traffic and just stop burdening your family or stop burdening society.
Did he write a blurb for Cuomo's book, I wonder? Because he must love the way Governor Cuomo's handled the old people in the state.
I bet it was his idea to have Biden run out the other night. For his,
jeez.
Can I just say, that's a good point. Can I just say that doesn't work? Because he runs like an old man. When he runs to try and look vibrant, it's so uncomfortable. He looks like,
he looks like there's an emergency.
When they bring out those World War II veterans that go skydiving or something and they can barely move, and you're saying, that's a wonderful thing, but man, his best days are behind him. I would be curious to see how many people on the task force, there's 10 people, these 10 hacks that Biden brought on to force lockdowns upon us and maybe get old people to just die. How many of them agree with him? Hell, How about, wouldn't that have been a good question for the press conference yesterday, Tom Shattuck? What do they call him? Mr. President-elect. Mr. President-elect, your most prominent coronavirus task force advisor thinks everyone over 75 is a useless waste of time and resources. Do you agree? Biden's 78. Keep this in mind, too. Pelosi, 80. Mitch McConnell, 78. Dr. Fauci, the sainted one, St. Anthony, is 80, I believe. All these people who are making all our, Dianne Feinstein, 87. Chuck Grassley, 87. Chuck Schumer is what, 78 or something? I mean, these people, I agree, they are a burden. I agree they should all just go away and
just keep them off the golf course. Don't murder them, but keep them off the golf course. Let them stay at home, watch Price is Right or some shit.
No, they're not on the golf course, Dave. They're busy making life and death decisions that affect 330 million people. They're busy doing the most important jobs on the friggin' planet. And they're 78, 80, 87, 80, 82, 85. You know what? I'm starting to come around. This Ezekiel Emanuel doesn't seem like a bad guy. Just get Dianne Feinstein to wander off. Let's leave us. Let someone else do that job.
But Zeke Emanuel, and people should remember, you talk about Fauci and the fact that he's got no credibility. He lied to us about masks because they had to, because him and all the other egg-headed bureaucrats in the health industry said we have to lie to the American people because they're stupid. And they'll buy up all the masks. So let's lie to them about the masks. And then he patted himself on the back a week later saying, yeah, we had to lie to you because, we can't trust you to make decisions. Well, Zeke Emanuel is on the ground floor of this kind of thought. Remember, him and Gruber worked together to craft Obamacare, and they had to lie to the American people about Obamacare consistently, including keeping your own doctor and keeping your own plan.
The biggest lie ever told from the Oval Office, in my life at least, the biggest lie ever told. He looked in the cameras over and over and over again and said, you can keep your doctor, knowing you couldn't. And you know how they won that vote? It was completely on partisan lines, not one Republican vote. It was by the skin of their teeth. And if they didn't tell that lie over and over again, it wouldn't have passed. But Barack Obama, some people think he was, whatever, honest, straightforward. That is the biggest lie. There's nothing Donald Trump or Richard Nixon or and Bill Clinton ever told to compare to that gargantuan lie because of the effect it had, because of the impact it had.
Well, just not only was it an incredible lie, and they knew it from the outset, and they planned and talked about it. Obama and Ezekiel Emanuel and Jonathan Gruber and all the other know-it-alls, they knew it was better for us. So it's built on a lie. It passes on a lie, even though there was no real vote for Obamacare. It passes on a lie, and all they need to do at that point is execute it, and the execution collapsed. Obamacare.gov collapsed. Healthcare.gov collapsed. It was a total mess, and there was no real ramifications for it. If you were the media at that point, you would have had to say, how could this be possible? It was your one signature thing. This is the thing that's most changing the lives of a good portion of Americans, and they can't get on to the health care you've promised them. And Obama then gets up to the White House press briefing room and says, you know what? What we found out was it's harder to do this stuff in government than it is in the private sector. Well, no shit. That's why we didn't want nationalized health care, for God's sakes. But he's learning in front of us. But the press just said, you know what? Good point, Mr. President. Good point. Things are tough in government. Good point. Right. You think Jeff Zeleny, put the screws to him? No, they probably apologized.
Here's the other notable thing from Ezekiel Emanuel, Rahm Emanuel's creepy brother. Not only does he think everyone should die by 75 and we shouldn't spend any money on elderly care, I'll bet in his quiet moments he thinks coronavirus is okay, for the world. He thinks when we have this vaccine and Pfizer, and by the way, I'll never look at Pfizer the same again. They held the news till after the election that they have a vaccine. They wanted to help Biden and hurt Trump. They did, obviously. Pfizer has a vaccine. It's 90% effective. We think it's going to, Fauci said it'll be ready by like 2028 because he always wants to be the doom and gloom guy. But although maybe not with this guy Biden taking over, maybe he'll be more optimistic. But we think, by the spring, Ezekiel Emanuel doesn't want to give it to Americans first. He wants to share it with the world. and find the most vulnerable people around the world. So Pfizer invents it. The U.S. taxpayers pay for it. And the president-elect's advisor thinks we should, start with, I don't know, Zimbabwe or New Zealand and say, yeah, here you go. Here's our vaccine. Let us know when you're good, and then we'll take it. I mean,
Right.
That's the kind of people, the kind of globalists that we now have calling the shots. I'm serious about this. I tweeted about this last night when Biden's person, whoever Biden's person is doing his tweeting, clearly not him, but we heard that he was talking with a number of foreign leaders. He said he talked to 6 yesterday, and we got congratulations from all the usual globalists like Trudeau and what's her face from Germany, Angela, Macron, and all these people that Trump gave the middle finger to, made them pay their fair share at NATO. God, they hate that when they have to pay their fair share at NATO or United Nations, which is another great thing Trump did, made them pay up, got out of the World Health Organization, got out of the climate accords. Biden's promising to squander all that money, go back to pissing away hundreds of $millions on these international globalist crime syndicates. Does anyone actually think the U.S. gives whatever is $3 billion to the climate accords, that helps anything? I mean, it's just a waste. The World Health Organization has shown that they're completely in the tank for China. We're going to go back to giving them tens of millions of dollars a year so they can help China cover up their next pandemic. Anyway.
Well, but Jerry, before we move off of that, Ezekiel Emanuel, who will be leading the coronavirus task force under Joe Biden, has said that the United States needs to go business-wise, like we have been, in a self-induced coma for through 2021. So next year is off. We're underground. The businesses are closed. So for at least a year and a half. And so that destroys businesses and it destroys lives. And guess who's being considered for Health and Human Services Secretary? Somebody who Zeke Manuel would like very much, Charlie Baker. So those two.
Charlie Baker's dead to me. And by the way, I thought Ezekiel Emanuel, because he's bald and he's kind of gaunt and he's gray, and I thought he was 70. He's only 63, so he doesn't want to die for 12 more years. But he's the ultimate limousine liberalist. His kids all went to Harvard. They, got their doctorate degrees from Harvard, and he's just one of these elitists who doesn't even understand what lockdowns do to working class people or small business people. He doesn't even understand. Oh, by the way, he went to Amherst College before he went to Harvard. No surprise there. But this creep doesn't understand the effects, the toll that lockdown have. He's just like Charlie Baker. He's an elitist, rich, pompous, latte liberal. Here's where it's all going to end for Charlie Baker. He's dead to me already. Anyway, Charlie Baker, the governor of Massachusetts, he has an R next to his name. He's not an R. He's a Democrat. He's a liberal. He's given up on small business. All the people who supported him and got them into office, he's turned around and told them to kiss his ass. He's busy pandering to academia and the Boston Globe. We've gone through this before. But if Liz Warren would have got a cabinet post, which is frightening, think of this. The cabinet is going to have people like maybe Andrew Cuomo for Attorney General, Liz Warren, Bernie Sanders is lobbying for a cabinet post. This is going to be the most radical bunch. This cabal of left-wing lunatics is going to be in charge of everything. But anyway, if she were to leave and go to Washington, Baker would be able to name her successor. What do you bet he names a liberal as the next senator? Baker, it's going to be
a bet, Jerry.
It's
since
going to be some black,
I have a hot hand.
woman, lesbian, one-eyed, handicapped. I mean, he's going to check as many boxes as he can and say to Linda Pizzuti, did I do good, Linda? Do you like my choice? She's really liberal. She's really, she likes the climate accords, and she thinks climate change is the biggest problem we have today, and systemic racism. That's the choice he's going to make.
Since I prognosticated perfectly with the football game, Jerry, I'm going to tell you again that 6 months from now, we will be celebrating Senator Cannon Grant in the United States Senate. And it's about time, because she needs to be heard, Jerry.
Or maybe Ayanna Pressley moves up in the world, becomes a senator, because that's her destiny anyway. She's going to be representing me for the rest of my life. But and by the way, her new cause: freeing prisoners. My congressperson, who is an absolute lunatic, squad member, Ringo Presley, thinks the top priority for government, state government right now, or probably federal government too, is freeing prisoners, because there's people in prison with the virus. I got news for you, Ayanna. There are people outside prison with the virus, but she wants them to open the doors and just allow all these prisoners, infected prisoners, diseased criminals, back on the streets. That's her cause.
It pairs nicely with defunded police.
Right.
And it's going to be marginalized communities that are just victimized again and again and again, for this wacky woke revolution stuff. That's really 2020 has been a terrible year for minorities in this country. It's been a good year for good liberals in Wellesley to feel good about what they did for minorities in this country.
Right.
But you have destroyed neighborhoods. You destroyed livelihoods. The virus, we all know and hear that it hurts minorities the most, but the defunding the police thing, you saw it. Minneapolis is a hellhole. We've done, you've got over 100 police officers, I think, have left Minneapolis.
Yeah,
These defunding stuff.
There's a story this morning about all the cops leaving NYPD. The cops put in there 20 years to get their pension, and they get there's jobs out there in the private sector. This is just accelerating the whole process. Guys are saying, I'm getting out of here. I don't want to, get busted because I arrested some criminal and someone videotaped and decided I was racist, or, I don't want people spitting on me and saying fry them like bacon. They just don't. I'm sure the job is not a lot of fun these days. So they're getting out. It's just forcing them to bail out quicker, which is bad for societies. Just like defund police is insane. But on the bright side, a lot of people out there, James Clyburn and others, are admitting that's one reason they had such a disastrous election day. That's one reason they lost so many seats in the House. One reason they're not going to win the Senate is defund the police. I mean, the guy, Clyburn, said the reason Lindsey Graham won was because of defund the police. And Georgia, by the way, the guy running against Kelly Loeffler, the Reverend, he's a big defund the police guy. This is going to be interesting. Yesterday, there was video of him with Fidel Castro, the Reverend. This was like 30 years ago. He was honoring Fidel Castro in Harlem and had an event with Fidel Castro. You think that's going over big in Georgia? I mean, I'm not sure anymore. Georgia's not what it used to be, but I'm guessing that we're going to hold both those seats in Georgia, because people are pissed and they don't want, this radical element controlling the Senate. So I feel good about.
So what do you do now? So now you've got AOC and Bernie and that part of the party saying, hey, we don't want Rahm Emanuel in the White House because he was in Chicago. He was not a woke mayor as far as police brutality, et cetera, went. And so now the old guard, the old Obama guard now, is already at odds with all of the exuberance in the party. So this is going to be very, very entertaining. And Biden can't do it. He has no way to push back. It's like you said, it's him and a few other octogenarians. Nancy Pelosi's about to be tossed out as speaker. They've got problems.
Which would be great. And by the way, she should just go away and die anyway. She's 80. But think of this. Biden right now is going to have to campaign. I mean, not like in person, but he's going to have to endorse the two liberals in Georgia and root for them openly, at least publicly, but quietly, privately. The word is, I got sources. I'm like Jim Acosta. I got sources in the Trump White House. Anything make you call bullshit more than when Jim Acosta says, my sources in the Trump White House or in the Trump family say that, Jared Kushner wants him to concede. I'm going, there's not a single person in the Trump White House who would ever return your phone call, or let alone tell you anything. He's just such a liar, that Jim Acosta, that blob. Anyway, quietly, Biden has to be rooting for for Loeffler and Perdue in Georgia. He has to be rooting for the Republicans to hold the Senate, because then Mitch McConnell can do the dirty work. He can stand up to AOC +3. He can stand up to Bernie Sanders and Liz Warren, and Joe won't have to. He can say, well, That's going to die in the Senate. If the Senate is controlled by Chuck Schumer, who has tacked way left because he knows AOC is coming for his old ass in whatever it is, 2 years. Is Schumer up in 2 years or 4 years? But anyway, AOC's gunning for him, so he has to be more radical and to survive. If Schumer's in charge, that's not good for Biden. It just isn't, because then the whole crazy radical Green New Deal, defund the police agenda is front and center, and Biden will be on the spot. I mean, they'll ask him, "What about the Green New Deal enchants you the most, Mr. President-elect?" All right, I got a couple more things we got to get to here. A couple sports things for sports guy Tom Shattuck.
Nice.
You get your baseball cap, your sports cap. Now that you're on a roll with your picks, who do you like this week? Patriots or Ravens?
Let's see. Ray Rice is with the Ravens, right?
I don't think
so. How about the guy who eats the dirt? Is he there?
Lately, but I don't think he is anymore. No. But they still have Lamar Jackson, former MVP. You know him?
Yes.
Good player.
Running
Good
quarterback.
Player. Right.
The Ravens will win by 2 touchdowns.
Whoa. You know what? I don't know what the line is, but I'll take the Patriots double or nothing. We'll just let this ride. $10. You'll be looking at 20 big ones if the Ravens win Sunday.
Very
and
nice.
Someday you're going to get all the peanut M&Ms you can eat again. But I want to talk about Shea Concrete, and then we're going to get to Tony La Russa, another guy, by the way, that Ezekiel Emanuel thinks is beyond help. And in this case, I might tend to agree with Dr. Zeke. But first, Shea Concrete. You know what Shea can do for you? They can build you a building, Shattuck. All right. Tony La Russa was busted for drunk driving, and we get the sound from that one. A few years back, I believe it was down in Florida, where he passed out at a red light. It was very, very embarrassing. It's one thing to get arrested. It's another thing when they get you on video or on audio and you're stumbling and bumbling and you can't say the alphabet. That makes it worse. But then he worked for the Red Sox, because the Red Sox, have a real high tolerance for bad actors. They get clubhouse guys who've been accused of raping children, and they get managers who cheat, and then they get rid of them for a year, and then they bring them back. And they had Tony La Russa on the payroll for years, and he was driving around endangering everybody in Florida because the guy doesn't know when to hand the keys over to someone else. Earlier this summer, he got named manager. He's 76 years old. He started managing like 40-something years ago, and they brought him back, the Chicago White Sox. They must not have done a whole lot of homework, I'm guessing, when they brought him back. Because what was the date on this DUI that he got busted for? February. He got busted in February again. It must have been down in Florida again. Let me check. Got arrested again for driving under the influence at 70.
He was in Phoenix when he was busted.
Jupiter.
Yep.
No, this was in Jupiter. Oh, in 2007, I'm sorry, it was in Jupiter.
Yeah.
This one was in Phoenix.
Yep.
Probably scouting for the Red Sox, doing whatever the Red Sox had his Red Sox company card with him, rented a car on the Red Sox, and had a few too many. And this time, obviously, he's this might be more embarrassing. I don't know which is more embarrassing, when he couldn't say the alphabet in 2007, or this year when he started trying to talk his way out of an arrest by showing the police officer his Hall of Fame ring. God, is that embarrassing? Here's the police report. He's asked if he had any drinks. La Russa says, quote, "I had 1 glass of wine while at dinner with my friends." Before searching his person and placing him in the rear of the patrol vehicle, La Russa asked, "Did you see my ring?" Officer says, "I asked La Russa what he was talking about." La Russa stated, "I'm a Hall of Famer baseball person." While placing him in the rear of the patrol vehicle, La Russa stated, "I'm legit. I'm a Hall of Famer, brother. You're trying to embarrass me." I advised La Russa that I will not embarrass him, that I would treat him with the utmost respect, says the officer. Do you really think
So that's the do you know who I am? And then I have the resume to prove it, and he runs it down. That's just embarrassing.
First of all, I wonder if he's been let off the hook, maybe in St. Louis when he was a hero, or Oakland, or maybe in Boston, because, he worked for the Red Sox and they tolerated this kind of behavior. Maybe they said, they looked the other way. But do you think there are times when his drunk ass was allowed to walk free? He's not a very quick learner. He did this in 2007, got busted, got humiliated. Do we have any sound from 2007?
Oh, we sure do, if you'd like to hear it.
This is Tony La Russa, a legit Hall of Famer, brother, when he was caught passed out at a red light 13 years ago.
On rhythmic manner, don't sing it. Any questions about that? Okay, you may begin.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, I, Z, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, V, T, U, V, X, Y, X, Z.
Okay. There's a few V's in there.
I think he said Z 7 times during that. Yeah.
The thing is, story. Do you have the story on what his alcohol level was? Because I'm guessing it was over the limit. When you're sleeping at a red light, at whatever it was, midnight, you tend to have not a lot of blood.
Yeah, that's a tough one to explain away to the police when they first wake you up and you're in the car. The thing is that guys who drunk drive a lot into their adulthood, they really like to drunk drive. They just love it. So I assume he's gotten away a bunch of times.
I say this all the time. I don't. I swear to God, believe me, I haven't done it since I was like in my 20s. I'm very, very paranoid. I had a couple of friends busted. I had a friend die. I had a good friend who wanted to drive when he got drunk. It was like, some people want to, they want to go chase women, or other people want to like take their clothes off, like Will Ferrell in Old School, and run down the street. He wanted to drive. We would have to like wrestle his keys away because he'd get drunk and say, let's go for a ride. I'd be like, what are you, nuts? He eventually got arrested driving, running a red light at Leverett Circle. And when we asked him when he got bailed out, he didn't remember where he was, didn't remember what happened. Complete blackout behind the wheel. That stuff scares the hell out of me.
Yes.
If he hits somebody,
there's no excuse.
15 years in prison.
There's no excuse in today's world for driving drunk with the Ubers and just in general. Like I could almost see people years ago when you didn't have a cell phone and shit like that, to some extent, not making excuses for him, but for Christ's sake, now you can call somebody and get a goddamn ride in 5 minutes. Like it's just inexcusable.
It's also
totally agree. But I assume that La Russa, that's his favorite, evening pastime is just cruising. And with the exception of the times when you fall asleep at the light, I'm sure he's gotten let go left and right. He's probably a pro cop guy. I assume he's a Trump guy. I don't know, but I kind of get the feeling. Although if the Sox hired him, who knows? But yeah, no, that's trouble. That's trouble you don't need. Getting a DUI is no good. At the very least, it's a huge pain in the ass and a lot of money and heartbreak. But at the most, you don't want to screw somebody's life up.
In 07, he blew a .093, which is above the .08 limit, but it's lower than I thought. He's a big animal rights guy. That was his big cause. It's always been his big cause. I think he owned or ran a shelter, or paid for it. He's raised money a lot for animal rights things, and he's against whatever fur, and he's against testing on animals and that kind of thing. I'm not sure he is a Trump guy. I mean,
I didn't know that.
He worked for Henry and Werner in New England, in Boston, where you have to be two things. You have to be able to cheat, and you have to hate Trump if you're going to work for the Boston Red Sox. So he, did that for a few years. I don't even know how many years he lasted with the Red Sox, but he was on the payroll. I don't think he was actually doing anything.
He was very critical of the Kaepernick movement, though. So
was he?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
When I was in my early 20s, Jerry, I had a scrape with the law in another state, and so I had to take this a driver's course, whatever. I had to take a course because I was a bad driver, essentially. And it was funny because we had to watch this video, and the video talking about being a more responsible driver, and was hosted by Bill Moyers.
Oh, geez.
Who, as you know, Jerry, has a couple of DUIs under his belt as well.
I assume you've had your challenges because both of us tried to do sober October. One of us succeeded, made it through the 31 days sober. Didn't work out for Tom Shattuck over here. The freewheeling, hard living Tom Shattuck, gambler, drinker. Obviously.
Well, when you live this close to Groveland, Massachusetts, and the boardwalk, there's a lot of the tempting things.
How many days did you make it on sober?
Well, I interrupted it on the 15th. We went out with some friends, and there was no. I mean, the friends had a couple of beers, and the beers were just gorgeous looking things, and that knocked us.
I say I did it. I wasn't sure I could do it. I didn't really talk about it because I wasn't sure I could do it. And I did it, and it wasn't as hard as I thought, but it was October. There's a reason it's October. It's because there's no like big holidays and no vacation, and nobody's like having parties, and it's not like Columbus Day where you have to. I couldn't do it in the summer, with cookouts and beer and golf, and I couldn't do it like Christmas and or any other, Super Bowl. My guys could probably do Super Bowl, but I couldn't do, like St. Patrick's Day. Most other months have those days that you feel like you have to have a cold one or two, but October wasn't one of those times. And plus, the restaurants aren't really open. The outdoor sections are open until 9:30 when Charlie Baker makes us all go home and run from the scary virus. But the restaurants aren't. It's not like a lot of people are inviting you to go to meet them at a bar, that kind of thing. But I'll do it. I'll do it again next year. We'll do it again together next year, Shattuck. We'll see if you can do it. I'll be your sponsor. Can I be a sponsor?
That would be good. That was fine. And actually, November has been easier. I haven't sworn anything off, but it's socializing, man. I don't know. I mean, what are you going to say? When I before the 15th, before that night, I was like, you know what? I can be just a non-drinker. I don't ever need to really go out and have a beer. What am I doing? But then that night when we found friends, including some Trump supporters, and we're having a great time, you have that beer or a couple of beers. You're like, why would I ever swear this off? It's so good. It's so nice. It belongs in every situation. But,
I don't know, just like giving up stuff for Lent. It just was a challenge. I don't think it means anything in the long run, but it's a challenge for me to give up like potato chips for Lent. I do it. I can do it, but I challenge myself. That's all. All right. One more thing before we get out of here, before I let you go. You gonna have a beer when we're done here? Maybe
I got Miller one right here, Jerry. Yes.
Both of you
Cullen's one of those.
Both of you guys are married. I don't know how you could go a month without drinking and being a married man. I'm thinking about going to hard drugs, to be honest with you.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that next October. Does that count if you do drugs in October, but no drinking?
Fair game. Yeah.
A lot of couples, a couple friends of ours are moving from drinking to edibles. So
I want to move to Oregon so you can shoot heroin now. It's legal to shoot heroin, do cocaine. You can snort lines of cocaine in front of a cop in Oregon now, and that's okay. You can do like OxyContin and Oxycodone, those kind of prescription drugs, and that's legal in Oregon now. Isn't that bizarre? Which make people, they rob stores, they rob CVS's looking for the stuff, and that's illegal to rob the store. But once you get it, you can take it and do it in front of a cop, and it's no big deal. Anyway, we said this when Alex Trebek died. The guy was in the public eye for 40 years, and you never heard a bad word about him. Nobody didn't like him, and everyone was just in awe of the great job he did. He was an icon without really any controversies in his life, and I wouldn't place Tommy Heinsohn quite in that category because, hell, he was a crazy, volatile coach. He was a crazy announcer, but you will not hear a bad word about Tommy Heinsohn. He was, and in my mind, he was the best thing you could be. He was genuine. He was authentic. There was no act. There was no faking. Mostly the thing people know him most for, he was 86 when he passed away yesterday. That's a hell of a run for a guy his size with his, shall I say, blood pressure and the fact that he smoked cigarettes most of his life. I used to look at him 30 years ago and be walking into the garden, and he was friendly and he was gregarious, but he was, cigarette going, drink going, whatever, and high strung. And I'd say, he's not going to be around that long. And he was. And that's a good thing because he was working, essentially up to the end almost as the color guys, the analyst, which he did for 30 something years for the Celtics. But he was involved in the Celtics for like 50 years, which is amazing.
But I mean, like
All-Star player, all-star coach, great coach, an announcer, national announcer, and then local announcer. And usually, Tom, I think of those homer guys that do games is they're being a homer just so they can survive. They're being a homer, like baseball play-by-play guys, like Castiglione on the radio. He's a homer because he's a sycophant. He wants the owners to like him and protect him for good reason. They do. He'll never get fired because the owners like him because he, sucks up. That's not what Tommy was doing. He just loved the Celtics. He was rooting for his team. And when he get mad at the refs, it was 100% genuine. It wasn't out of self-interest. He just liked the Celtics. That's how he was. It was real. It was funny. It was a lot like, Johnny Most in that regard. He was an entertainer as well as an announcer, and people appreciated it. And no one ever said a bad word about him. His personality was loud and full of, laughs. You could hear him laugh from, three doors down. You could, or if he was in the garden and you were 50 feet away, you could hear him laugh. He had that smoky voice and just a great personality. And it was a hell of a run.
It's also different to be a homer as a color analyst. Like I want to throw Jack Edwards, through a glass window. He's the worst. It's different to be a play-by-play guy than a color guy. Scott Zolak's good proof of that, right? But
that's a good point.
He's been toning it down, right? Like that now they're trying to bring in Scalabrine, I think is doing a lot more, and he's just not the same, obviously, as Heinsohn. So he seemed to, I'm not going to say he saw the writing on the wall, but he toned it down the last couple of years, right?
I guess, yeah. And sometimes it was over the top, but it was funny and it was real. He wasn't acting. Yeah. He wasn't playing a role. You're right. Play-by-play guys, they're not supposed to do that. Color guys can get away with it, especially when they played and coached the team for decades. You can't expect them to be neutral. I guess he did a good job of it. I don't remember exactly what I thought of him when he was doing the national games, but he wasn't obviously yelling at the refs from the seat the way he was when he was doing.
He was still loud and boisterous. There's no doubt. I just saw him with was it Brett Musburger, who used to work with for some of those things, and Dick Stockton, and he was definitely loud. But it's great when there's it's kind of rare they have somebody who can emote legitimately and provide good analysis. And you're right. He was like the loudest guy at every Knights of Columbus Hall, and he talked like people. So I thought he was awesome, even though I don't care less about basketball, but I always thought he was awesome. I always loved how he was a homer and he had no time for the refs. And I don't think they mint those kind of people out of broadcasting school anymore. They're very rare. Right?
It's actually a good point. Good point by Cullinane is the color guys, Zolak and Tommy. They don't bother me, especially if they played or coached the team. They're being it's the play-by-play guys, the Jack Edwards, the Joe Castigliones, who are doing it, and it's annoying, and they're doing it to please the owner, to assure some job security. That's annoying. But here's Lee Montville, former Globey, former Sports Illustrated guy with me when I was there, and he doesn't tweet a lot, I don't think, but I just saw his tweet, and it was perfect. He said, any day you were anywhere in Tommy Heinsohn's orbit, in person or at home with a beer and a clicker in hand, was a good day. There were stories, laughs, bluster, and gusto, a sense of good fun that he brought with him 24/7, 365 for as long as most of us have been alive. R.I.P., sir. And it's true. He's been around. I mean, I was a kid and he was the coach. I never saw him play. And he was a great coach, and you liked him because he yelled at the refs. He was fiery. He yelled at them. I mean, he was just emotional. And I always thought, when he was done coaching, he'd coach again, but he just settled into a great life as a as an announcer and and it was a painter, which is bizarre. This big macho, cigarette smoking, loud guy went home up to the North Shore and painted, sketches and landscapes and oceans, and apparently was pretty damn good at it. Although I wouldn't know, but had a great reputation for that and did a lot for charity, and just everybody just liked being around him. And I think that's like the nicest thing you could say about someone. Everyone liked being in his orbit.
There's something to be said for somebody of his generation who, as a kid, his parents were in the Depression, and as a young athlete, I assume that Heinsohn had to get a job on the off season when he was very young.
Yeah, it's a good point. He sold insurance. Upton Bell told the story of buying a life insurance policy off him when he was doing that. Like you said, when he had another job in the offseason, he was drafted with Bill Russell. They were rookies together, and Russell's still alive. It's amazing. Russell's alive. Kuzi's alive. We lost Havlicek, who was great, but we lost now Heinsohn. But some of these guys are still around and still kicking. And I don't know if they'll obviously can't have funerals unless you want to put out the Black Lives Matter sign and celebrate, the defeat of Donald Trump. You can't have big gatherings, so you can't really have a big funeral. If they could have, it would have been huge, and it would have been a lot of laughs and a lot of fun. He was always, when I knew him, when I was around the Garden, always with his wife, which is always a nice thing. Seeing him like holding hands on the elevator with his wife Helen of I don't know how of many years. But Coach of the Year award, Rookie of the Year, like 6-time All-Star, national announcer, local announcer, and just legend. And I think it was Kuzi who said nobody is associated with the Celtics, and it's a hell of a dynasty, a legacy, but nobody is associated more closely with the brand, with the Celtics brand than Tommy Heinsohn. Not the best player, not the most famous or accomplished player, but nobody is Mr. Celtic quite like Heinsohn.
Yeah, that sucks. Those guys are all essentially all gone. I mean, who's left? It kind of reminds me of you guys probably never did this, but at the Super Bowls, I had to take. I didn't know anything about football when I was broadcasting from the Super Bowls, so I took every guest there was. But always the best guests were like the old guys, like Jerry Kramer. Like the old guys who were there, who were tough as hell.
Yeah, who would go on with you. They'd be like,
right.
Sure, they're selling their prostate, formula or something.
Yeah, but they're tight. Like, that Tommy Heinsohn has some stories from the Red Auerbach days, like some real. Just like I bet you mentioned Bobby Orr earlier. I mean, hockey guys, come on. He must have some crazy stories, but they keep it. You know what I mean? Like, what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. If that were today's world, all that shit would be out there.
They famously wheeled Bobby Orr after one of his knee surgeries out of the hospital and into a bar. His teammate Derek Sanderson and Wayne Cashman and Ken Hodge and the whole crew. And when I've been with him a few times, or I say I got to hear it, and we've done a couple of these charity trips to Fort Myers with Bobby Orr, and just to get things going, I'll say, tell us about the time they wheeled you out of the hospital and down the street, like the Beatles or whatever. No, the Monkees, the Monkees wheeling you down the street in your bed to the bar, just to tell that story, just to laugh and get people going. And Orr's great at it, and Heinsohn was great at it. I mean, can't imagine the number of times he spoke to whatever groups, schools, and just told one funny story after another. But
yeah, didn't they went up to Esposito, had a place in Beacon Hill, right? Didn't they just reel him like right out and then up to Beacon Hill?
Right to it was called like the Iron Horse or something. I forget the name of the bar, but I can look it up. But R.I.P. Thomas William Heinsohn, or as Ronald Reagan called him, Heinsohn, because he couldn't pronounce the names of the when they won the championship in '81 or '84, one of those championships. But it was a hell of a run, Tommy Heinsohn. R.I.P. and R.I.P. And he lived a little too long for Ezekiel Emanuel. It would have been nice if he croaked 10, 15 years ago, but he hung in there and had a hell of a run. But all right, Shattuck, you picked this week. You're picking the Ravens, huh? Picking the Ravens.
Two touchdowns.
By 2 touchdowns, the Ravens in the over. And I'm going to guess you think Lamar Jackson's going to run wild over the Patriots.
Absolutely, Jerry. This is a lock, by the way, and I am 1 for 1. I'm 100% so far this year.
You are, and you were a man on an island, man. Nobody else had the Jets, and they almost won it outright, but they beat the spread easily. Congratulations, Shattuck. And thanks. That is Tom Shattuck from the Burn Barrel podcast and the Lowell Sun. I appreciate it, Shattuck. And thanks to Shea Concrete and Allied Paving. And thanks to DCU. Cullinane, anything else?
This is your last shot because I think they tee off around 7:30. I need your winner of the Masters right now.
I'm not even going to look at the odds. I'm not going to consult anything. I don't want to pick Bryson DeChambeau because he's the favorite, correct? Or is Dustin Johnson the favorite?
I believe DeChambeau is the favorite, and I am saying that DeChambeau does not make the cut. That's how wild of a take. He is so messed up in the head. I'm saying the pressure is going to get to him.
Yes,
and
DeChambeau is a tough one because he is annoying. He's so slow, but he's entertaining. You can't take your eyes off him. He plays, they call it bomb and gouge golf. Bomb it, try to drive every green, end up in the deep rough, and you gouge it out. It worked at the U.S. Open where they said it wouldn't because the rough was so long. He's going to be one to watch, but I'm going to make my pick. Ready? Xander Schauffele. How's that?
Okay, that's a good pick. That's a good pick. Well, you said bomb it, right? Bomb it's the way we're playing golf, and Dustin Johnson is going to bomb it all the way to the green jacket. He's going to be
like the second favorite, right? I mean, after DeChambeau, what are the odds?
He's in the top 5, but he's coming off COVID. This is the year of COVID, so Sergio goes out with it. Now Dustin Johnson comes back, recovered, and he wins the green jacket. That's my take.
I am so psyched to have Masters in November. I don't care if it's good weather or not. I'm gladly stay inside and watch the Masters. It's the greatest TV sporting event, and it's weird because it's November. It's going to be darker early, and it's just going to feel a little different. It's going to look a little different. I got John Rahm as the favorite.
Oh gosh, I don't know. That's boring. It's his stupid little thing that he hit last night. Like,
are you kidding me? That was the most incredible golf shot I've ever seen in my life. It was unbelievable.
Incredible. Yeah, it was cute.
I like one by skipping it off the water.
Yeah,
it was. I know it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really count, but that was an incredible golf shot, Cullinane.
It's just lucky. It's just stupid. I don't know. I hate that shit. I hate dumb little trick shots like that. Sorry, that's for those dumb people.
These are from William Hill, the odds maker, the British odds maker. You're right. DeChambeau number 1, Dustin Johnson number 2. DeChambeau's 8-1, Dustin's 9-1, Rahm 11-1. Justin Thomas, 12-1. I like him too, but Schauffele's 14-1. So I'm going to go with Schauffele. You don't want to pick the favorite. I'm going to give you someone to go with, Shattuck, just because I know you're not a big golf guy.
I like Phyllis Schlafly.
Patrick Cantlay. All right, you go with Patrick Cantlay, okay?
By a touchdown, yes.
All right, by a touchdown. All right.
Hey, before we go, I know you want to wrap up though, but Veterans Day today, so thank you to everybody who served. We got to make sure got to get that out there because we didn't say that.
Yes, happy Veterans Day to all the veterans. We're allowed to say happy Veterans Day. It's not a somber day. It's a day to honor our vets. I am heading up to Chelmsford to honor all the veterans from my hometown, including Gerald Callahan Sr., the original, who was a proud veteran, served in the Army Signal Corps, and they do a nice job, of course.
Nice.
In Chelmsford, honoring their veterans, but all veterans have a great day. We can't thank you enough. We owe you everything. God bless you. I'm Jerry Callahan. This is the Callahan Podcast, and we will talk to you tomorrow.